Satyam, whose material manifestations, Svachanda, independently, Saktim, who is powerful, Kapilam, to Lord Kapila, Prapadye, I surrender. I'll read through it and then we'll read through it together. Translation. I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descended in the form of Kapila, who is independently powerful and transcendental, who is the Supreme Person and the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time, who is the fully cognizant maintainer of all the universes under the three modes of material nature, and who absorbs the material manifestations after their dissolution. So please repeat after me. I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descended in the form of Kapila, who is independently powerful and transcendental, who is the Supreme Person and the Lord of the, who is the Supreme Person and the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time, who is the fully cognizant maintainer of the universes under the three modes of material nature, and who absorbs the material manifestations after their dissolution. So, purport by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. So, the six opulences, which are wealth, strength, fame, beauty, knowledge, and renunciation, are indicated here by Kadama Muni, who addresses Kapila Muni, his son, as Param. The word Param is used in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the phrase Param Satyam to refer to the summum bonum, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Param is explained further by the next word, Pradhanam, which means the chief, the origin, the source of everything. Sarva Karana Karanam, the cause of all causes. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is not formless. He is Purusham, or the enjoyer, the original person. He is the time element and is all cognizant. He knows everything, past, present, and future. As confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says, I know everything, present, past, and future, in every corner of the universe. The material world, which is moving under the spell of the three modes of nature, is also a manifestation of his energy. Parasya Saktis Vivid Haiva Srutyate. Everything that we see is an interaction of his energies. Svetasvatara 6.8. Parasya Brahmana Saktis Tetam Ad Akhilam Jagat. This is a version of the Vishnu Purana. We can understand that whatever we see is an interaction of the three modes of material nature. But actually, it is all an interaction of the Lord's energy. Lokapalam. He is actually the maintainer of all living entities. Nityo Nityanam. He is chief of all living entities. He is one, but he maintains many, many living entities. God maintains all other living entities, but no one can maintain God. That is his Svachananda Shakti. He is not dependent on others. Someone may call himself independent, but he is still dependent on someone higher. The personality of Godhead, however, is absolute. There is no one higher or equal to him. Kapila Muni appeared as a son of Kadama Muni. But because Kapila is an incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kadama Muni offered respectful obeisances unto him with full surrender. Another word in this verse is very important. Atman Utyanagata Prapancham. The Lord descends either as Kapila or Ram, Nrsimha or Varaha, and whatever forms he assumes in the material world are all manifestations of his own personal internal energy. They are never forms of the material energy. The ordinary living entities who are manifested in this material world have bodies created by the material energy. But when Krishna or any one of these expansions, or parts of the expansions, descends on this material world, although he appears to have a material body, his body is not material. He always has a transcendental body. But fools and rascals who are called mudhas consider him one of them, and therefore they deride him. They refuse to accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead because they cannot understand him. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Avajjananti mam mudha. Those who are rascals and fools deride me. When God descends in a form, this does not mean that he assumes his form with the help of the material energy. He manifests his spiritual form as he exists in his spiritual kingdom. So I'll just read again the translation. I surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, descended in the form of Kapila, who is independently powerful and transcendental, who is the Supreme Person and the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time, who is the fully cognizant maintainer of all the universes under the three modes of material nature, and who absorbs the material manifestations after their dissolution. I don't know if you can really say you have a favourite canto, but definitely the third canto is definitely one of my favourites. I listened to it on audiobook, and I've actually listened to it a couple of times. I really love this this whole play between Kadama Muni and Devahuti, and how he's it's back in the Satya Yuga where they lived for about 100,000 years. So he had his yoga practice, which went for a while, 10,000 years. And from all of his austerities and practices, always keeping devotion as part of his practice, he was then able to manifest an amazing home, you might say, for Devahuti. And then they were able to enjoy their union together, their intimate union together. But always knowing that he would follow the process, that one day he would leave and go off to the forest. And as part of that Vanaprastha stage, when we think it's time to leave the family, it's really important that when we leave, that the wife, the children are going to be looked after. But I guess he was really fortunate that his son was Kapila Muni, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he really didn't have to wait very long before he could leave, unlike some of us who have to wait till our kids are at least teenagers or so. But so there he is. He's offering his obeisance here, and he's talking about the glories of his son Kapila Muni. And usually it's always the son who will offer obeisances to the father. But here we have the situation here where Kadama Muni is in full knowledge of who his son is, so he's therefore offering obeisances to his son. And in this particular verse, we've got we've got him talking about how his son is fully cognizant, maintainer of all the universes. He is the Lord of the sum total of matter and the element of time. And Srila Prabhupada goes on to talk about how the Lord is never material, even though he comes in so many different shapes, so many different forms. But the ignorant mudhas, rascals, basically the underlying it, their enviousness, their enviousness of God, that they like to deny his existence. I have an acquaintance who we quite often debate spiritual topics, and he just can't get it. I brought him here one day, and he read out on the board, God is a person. And he said, what's this? It's just ridiculous. How can God be a person? And I tried to explain to him, but he just couldn't get it. For him, the whole highest realization is impersonalism. So for some reason, we've done some sort of good actions in our past that we have the ability to start to understand that God is a person. I mean, that's not a small thing. And Prabhupada once said to senior devotees in his room, he said, do you believe it now? Do you believe that Krishna is God? Because it's a small thing to say, but it's a huge leap to come to that realization. It's so easy to ignore the existence of God, as most of the world is actually doing. I teach yoga philosophy as part of yoga courses, but I've got to tread carefully that I don't sound like a religious fanatic, and I just try to bring in there gently you have the Ashtanga 8 limbs of yoga, the second limb being the niyamas, and the fifth one of those being Ishvara Pranidhana. So I try to talk to them about this idea of Ishvara, that there is this power greater than ourselves, and Pradhana is to start to surrender to this power greater than ourselves. And I just tread gently, and I sort of backtrack to the fifth one of the yamas, aparigraha, this whole concept of trying to live in a non-greedy, non-selfish way. And I try to explain to them, you can kind of join these two together, that if we can start to realize that we will be given what we need when we're ready for it. We won't always get what we want, but we will get what we need, and we'll get it when we're ready for it. And this comes especially if we can start to surrender to this power greater than ourselves, if we can really start to live a life and start to trust that everything that we're getting is for our benefit, is for our good. And sometimes I try to explain to people, it's also like if you have those who are parents and can still remember having young children, really young, like 2, 3, 4 years old. And if they get sick, we sometimes have to give them medicine that might taste foul, but they have to take it. They have to take it to get well. And so it is in the material world that there are lessons that we need to be given by Krishna's arrangement. Even those who have no understanding of who Krishna is, he still is there within everyone's heart as a Paramatma. He knows everyone's desires, and he's there to help us all to try to, come back to him. So there are lessons that we are given, and sometimes they're really painful lessons, like that bitter medicine that we've got to give to children. And I think that all of us in this room can look back into our past, especially before we came to devotional service, and we can see that there's been times when we've had some really painful, difficult situations. All of us have had them. And if we've actually faced up to them and dealt with them, we've come out the other side as a stronger version of ourselves. And put in simplistic terms, I sometimes say to people, the purpose of human life is to become the best version we can of ourselves. And that process of becoming the best version we can of ourselves means that we need to focus not on economic development, not on trying to increase our bank balance or to get better clothes or chase the opposite sex or whatever. But it's about learning, growing and improving, working towards that becoming a better version of ourselves. And at some point, if we're lucky, by the grace of grace of Krishna, but especially by the grace of Guru, we'll come in contact with the devotee and be given the opportunity to start to learn about Krishna. It's a really unique and special thing. And of course, a lot of people do have that opportunity, but they just turn their back on it. So for some reason, probably or possibly because of activities that we've done in our previous lives, we've been a little bit more receptive and therefore a bit more attracted to at least giving it a go. And so here we are now following the process that Srila Prabhupada has set out for us. So I'll just go on to speak a little bit more about, as Prabhupada talks about the three modes of material nature, he talks about how Krishna is fully cognizant of everything. So when I do try to introduce this concept to basically atheists, or at best agnostics, I start to say this whole idea of Ishvara Pranidhana, opening our minds, starting that surrender to a power greater than ourselves. I even say, look, if you can't handle God, the word God, then break it into an acronym and look at it as good, orderly direction. That there is a force in the universe creating this good, orderly direction, helping arrange things for our benefit. And then I go on to say, if we can start to accept that there is a power greater than ourselves, then we can give it some attributes. Perhaps we can just start off by saying this power is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent. So it's just starting to open our minds to those three. Omniscient, knows everything. Omnipresent, is everywhere. Omnipotent, all-powerful. And so something that's stuck with me for the last 30 or 40 years since I first started sitting here in Srimad Bhagavatam classes was that not even a blade of grass moves without the sanction of the Lord. So I've tried in my life to, when situations have happened that have felt unpleasant, I don't like this happening, but I try to come back to that not even a blade of grass can move without the sanction of the Lord. And I think, well, he's guiding this, he's making it happen for whatever reason. And a really good teacher that we can have in our lives is this Harry Hindsight. So after some time has passed, we can look back and we say, yeah, okay, that happened for a reason, and I grew from it. Or maybe I just, the lesson was to not do it again. My father once said, it's okay to make mistakes, everyone will make mistakes, but try not to keep making the same mistakes over and over. And once he said, try to make new mistakes. Because they can be a good teacher, making mistakes. But of course, if we can surrender to the guidance of a spiritual master and the appropriate authorities, then they can guide us so that we don't have to make so many mistakes. We can remain a third-class ignorant person, but ideally we can rise to be a first-class intelligent person is told that if you put your hand in the fire, you'll burn yourself. So we don't do that. We've listened to the authorities. They said if we do that, we'll get burnt, so we don't do it. But of course, a second-class intelligent person who doesn't trust the authorities sneaks away and tries it out, put their hand in the fire. Oh, yeah, it does burn. Okay, I'll trust them now. I won't do that again. But then, unfortunately, there's a third-class intelligent that say, well, maybe if I put my hand in from the other side, it won't get burnt. And they just don't learn. And not in this lifetime, anyway. So, starting to understand that Krishna, God, has these attributes of being omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. But then I try to guide people a little bit further and say maybe we can also say that this power greater than ourselves is also loving and caring. And if we can start to open our minds to that possibility, then maybe we're not so alone in the world. And then sometimes I like to tell that story of the footprints in the sand, that as we go through life and we look down at the sand, we can see two sets of footprints. Obviously one's ours and the other one, maybe that's God's. But then we run on hard times and things get really difficult and we look down, there's only one set of footprints. And every time life gets difficult, there's only one set of footprints. So finally we turn around and say, why is it, God, that you just desert me every time things get tough? And God replies, they're my footprints because I'm carrying you through those difficult times. So that's also been for me, excuse me, that's also been an important story for me, that I'm not a very social person, and I can only be at the temple sometimes, have the association of devotees. But most of the time I'm out there away from devotees. So, excuse me. So I tend to isolate myself because I don't like to just talk about the weather, talk about the news, talk about this war or that stuff. I just don't like to talk about those things. So I tend to spend a lot of time by myself, but I know that I'm not by myself. That story reminds me that I do have this friend, Krishna, and as I'm plotting and planning my way through the businesses that I'm involved in, I think, well, I have that partner. You know, I'm not doing it on my own. Superficially, it seems like it. I'm the pinnacle of the pyramid, making the biggest decisions by myself. But I really try to do it with Krishna, especially more recently when I've decided that no longer do I want the business to be mine, but I actually want the business to be Krishna's directly. And so now it feels more 100% devotional service, and I really feel that he's guiding things now, so which makes it feel a lot better now that I've got this business partner who's infallible. The other thing also that Prabhupada talks about and is mentioned in the translation is the three modes of material nature. And again, I can only speak from my experiences, how I try to share this information with students who come to yoga and know very little about the philosophy, and they just know how to practice a few postures. And I try to explain to them what are the three modes of material nature and how everything in the material world is under the influence of them. And I try to give examples, and even I'll do imagery on a whiteboard where I put up the top, I put the words, three gunas, and then I try to draw like a pendulum that's swinging from side to side. And at one time it can swing across to rajas, where we're behaving in a very rajasic, very competitive, very judgmental way, where we're working flat out to try and build up our bank balance, etc. And then, of course, the pendulum swings all the way over to the other side, to tamas. When we finish work, we go to the pub, and as the night progresses, we get more and more tamasic until we crash out. But with knowledge and a little bit of decisions and a little bit of determination, we say, well, I don't want to be so rajasic. I don't want to be so tamasic. But of course, we need this knowledge to even start to make that decision. And then slowly the pendulum will stop swinging so much from side to side to being so rajasic or so tamasic. And gradually, with the help of the devotees, with the help of Guru, that pendulum will gradually start to move more towards that center of living a more sattvic lifestyle, starting to make more sattvic choices, starting to have a more sattvic diet, starting to appreciate the benefits of getting up early in the morning, getting up before sunrise. And if we're fortunate enough to be here at the Holy Dham here, we have the opportunity to not only get up early, but come and to share that time with the devotees at Mangalarti. Such a very special opportunity. And of course the rest of the morning program. But so just starting to make those more sattvic choices, and I try to point out to people that it can look very sattvic externally, or sometimes give the example of practicing a yoga posture where, those not so familiar with postures, where we stretch the legs out in front and we go into a forward bend. And as we go into it, some people go into it with this very rajasic sort of attitude. And when I'm training people to be a yoga teacher, I warn them, if you have a student like that, they are an accident waiting to happen. And as soon as they end up injuring themselves, they'll go away and say, I'm not going back to that person's class. They injured me. That really rajasic sort of nature person. But then, of course, you've got the, on the other end of the spectrum, you've got the person who comes along, they're doing the same posture, and they're going forward, and as they go into it in a really sleepy manner, for those sort of people, they're so tamasic, we kind of want to wake them up and get a bit of fire and perhaps get them just a little bit rajasic. It's better to move a little bit more towards rajas rather than being stuck in tamas. And I sort of do a bit of a role play and to try and demonstrate that. But then I say, okay, and then you've got the person who sits there in a very upright manner. They're doing a sattvic activity, yoga, and they're starting to do it in a very sattvic way. They're moving into their forward bend. They're really connecting with their breath. And you can see that they're practicing in a very sattvic way. But what are they thinking? Are they thinking, wow, I'm so sattvic. I think maybe I am the most sattvic person in the room. I wish my teacher could be as sattvic as me. So we can start to learn that it's not just about the activities that we do, but it's so important the intentions behind our activities. And here again, we are so lucky if we're able to stay in the Holy Dharma here, that our intention, we can start to focus our intention that it's about pleasing Krishna. Doesn't matter what we're doing. Doesn't matter whether we're working in the garden, cleaning the toilets, being on the altar, serving the deities directly, or whatever it might be. If the intention behind it is always just to please Krishna, then we've even transcended sattva. We've even gone beyond that, Suddha sattva, transcendental goodness. And of course, it's not a place that's easy to stay, but at least if we can just start to get that taste, and as we start to get the taste, we'll start to develop a hunger to have more of it. And it's the material energies, there's nothing to be played with, It's not a simple thing. It's actually Krishna's energy. It's incredibly powerful. And Maya, being a pure devotee of Krishna, she'll test us, Are you really ready? Here we are in the material world. We're in this prison house. Are you really ready to be paroled? Are you really ready to leave this prison house? So you've got to go before the parole board, and they'll ask you a whole lot of questions, check you out. And so the way Maya does that, she'll tempt us. She'll say, you can be happier somewhere else. What are you working so hard here? You're not even getting paid for it. Or perhaps you're getting paid below the minimum wage. Or all this sort of thoughts will come into our mind and tempt us away from here. So it's not easy to stay in that transcendental, that Suddha Sattvic attitude of life. But if we can start to gain that wisdom, which I chanted that mantra just before I spoke, Om Agyan Timirandasya, Gyananjana Salakaya. So, it starts off by saying that we were born in the darkness of ignorance, avidya, agyan, without knowledge. We were born without knowledge. We knew nothing about Krishna, about anything really when we were babies. But then it goes on to say, Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshu. So we, through the grace of Guru and the devotees, we were illuminated with the torchlight of knowledge. And then if we go on to that next verse, it starts to Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Janabhutale. It starts to talk about some of the of our parampara, and even it's talking about some of the 6 Goswamis. So really, I guess it just really comes back to trying to live a spiritual life. When people sometimes ask me, what's your religion? I say, I don't really have one. But if I was to identify with anything, I aspire to be a Vaishnava. And they say, well, what's that? And I say, well, it's just to try to live by spiritual principles. Because I'm not really into religion, but I try to live by spiritual principles. And then I'll say, and the other thing I really want to have in my life is the KISS principle, to apply the KISS principle to my life, to just keep it simple, sweetie. And so spiritual principles like gratitude are so important, to be grateful for everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, to be grateful for them, because, and to not go out this whole thing of trying to chase happiness, if we were to perhaps go and do a survey down at the mall, and we ask people as they go along, what do you want out of life? And most people are going to say, I just want to be happy. And then we put them on the spot and we say, what makes you happy? And they'll say, to see a beautiful sunset, to taste beautiful food, to feel beautiful things, to listen to beautiful things. They'll talk about their sense enjoyment and how this makes them happy. But then it doesn't keep them happy. It's not long before that happiness starts to fade. And so, as it says, as Krishna explained to Arjuna, and then it becomes explained to us, that this whole idea of happiness becomes equally balanced with unhappiness, this whole sukha, dukkha, that they'll come to us in equal measure. And we can waste our time chasing the happiness only to have the unhappiness, the distress, follow up on us. So rather to focus more, again, as Patanjali has said in the second one of the limbs, niyamas, and the second one of those, santosha, to start to be more content with what we have, with what Krishna is giving to us, contentment. So rather than being focused on trying to find happiness, material happiness, start off, even if it's just material contentment, starting to be content, starting to focus more on words like contentment, harmony, and serenity. And then naturally, speaking only now from my own experience, the more that I start to do devotional activities, especially when it's in the association of the devotees, it's nice listening to audio books and listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam, but to come to the Bhagavatam class and to listen to Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, to do other activities in the association of devotees, is so special. And just something comes into my mind. I think it was in the 8th canto, where there's this conversation going on between Narada Muni and Yudhisthira. And Yudhisthira is asking him some advice, like what can we do as part of our sadhana, our regular practices to remember Krishna. And Narada Muni says, look, the most important thing you can do to help you along in your devotional service is listen to Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by a devotee in the association of other devotees. That's the one biggest thing Narada Muni said to Yudhisthira. So I think it's so important, that we can come here on a regular basis, as often as possible. Of course, if we're living here at the farm, there's no reason why we can't do it all every day. Bless you. And, I'll just pause for a moment, just let you think of a question or a comment. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you, Jitamitra Prabhu, for the class. When you're speaking about Shuddha Sattva, transcendental goodness, I've heard before about people saying about transcendental passion also. Mm-hmm. I just wanted to hear if you had any more information on transcendental passion, also if there is a transcendental ignorance, and what does this mean, how can you then understand?
Maybe, no, I can't, I'd be speculating, but in Krishna book, I'm reading at the moment about the gopis going to dance with Krishna, leaving behind their families and their responsibilities to just be there with Krishna, and possibly that's transcendental passion. And I've just got to the stage where they become so happy about it, happy to the point where they actually became proud of it. And then Krishna disappeared. So, it's been really interesting reading this, because I realise I really got to watch myself. Pride, pride comes before the fall. So I'm not sure whether, because the gopis are always transcendental. So whether you can say that they're in that transcendental passion to be with Krishna and dance with him and have his intimate personal association. And then as they move into this mood of pride, whether that might be transcendental ignorance. But no, it's not a subject that I've ever heard spoken about before. Very interesting question. Prabhu, would you like to say something on that?
One example you can use for, you're saying transcendental ignorance or devotional service in the mode of ignorance, is when you're chanting and you're falling asleep. And then somebody taps you on the shoulder, Prabhu, you're falling asleep. No, I'm not. I'm not sleeping. And you're getting angry. That's like influence of mode of ignorance. You're trying to come up to the devotional platform, but ignorance is there. And devotional service in the mode of passion is like sometimes you see devotees and they're chanting like it's a machine gun. And their whole body's shaking around, and how much hearing is actually going on. So, of course, devotional service in the mode of goodness, that's a platform to the Sudasattva, it's a pure goodness. So, but even in the mode of goodness, that's still a conditioning, conditioned, and sometimes sort of laziness, complacent, because everything's so peaceful, So, but still, that's the goal, to get up to the mode of goodness, and from there, it's a springboard to the higher Sudasattva, pure goodness. So there's transcendence there if you're trying to please Krishna, even if you're falling asleep while you're chanting japa. The motive trying to please Krishna, but it's mixed. It's karma misra bhakti. It's sort of karma, mixed with devotional service, or material energy mixed with devotional service. And that's everybody. Until we're completely pure, it's all going to be a mixture.
Yes, it's definitely said that the mode of goodness is the best spot to then transcend. But some people do get stuck there, the idea of, you've got your little 5-acre property, you're growing your own vegetables, you wear, nice sattvic clothes, and you can get stuck there, stuck in being sattvic. And then if you're not actually doing anything at all towards pleasing Krishna, then you might be so sattvic that next life you'll come back and maybe it's a cow. But I was just thinking, just reflecting back in the early 80s, when we would sell paraphernalia to help fund the building of Mayapur. And so the paraphernalia that we'd sell, we saw that as part of Krishna's energy to liberate Lakshmi, so that she could be channeled back to Mayapur. And so we would go out travelling, selling this paraphernalia and stay in caravan parks, and then we come back Saturday afternoon, go out in Harinam, have the Sunday program, and then we get so fired up, those who are really keen to get out there early, Sunday night into the cars, off we go. Those of us a little less fired up, we go out Monday morning. But it would become very competitive, transcendentally competitive. So I can think back that was a bit maybe of transcendental mode of passion at times. Any other questions or comments?
Is there anything wrong with that? Like transcendental passion? Or is it...
Well, I think it's time, place and circumstance. I think of Arjuna being there on the battlefield and fighting and killing, but he did it for Krishna. And I would think that was transcendental mode of passion, but he was a Kshatriya. That was his nature. His nature is to be predominantly Rajasic. That's the nature of a Kshatriya. but he was doing it to serve Krishna. So I think if we're always doing it to serve Krishna, then it will help us to advance in our Krishna consciousness. But because we're in Kali Yuga now and we've come from such contaminated backgrounds, I think it's best if we can always try to make more sattvic choices and to do more sattvic activities. Yeah, that's what I think.
Thank you.
Okay. But if there's a requirement that Krishna or the authorities require us to do an activity that might require us to really get rajasic, then we should adopt that same mood as Arjuna. I think it's actually the clock's a few minutes slow, and I see there. Oh yes.
When we go out on books, we have to have kind of like this intention of going with people, like non-stop throughout the day, to give them books that can get them close to Krishna. So it feels like there's somewhat passion can come into that. I know at times, sometimes it feels like passion is taking over. But you're doing it also with the intention to give people something that brings them close to Krishna. So I'm kind of trying to understand how to do that in a more sattvic way whilst also keeping enthusiasm, because I can imagine when you're more sattvic, you'd be standing at the table like, oh yeah, Krishna will arrange it, but then your desire has to be there also, which then you need enthusiasm. So how do we kind of be sattvic whilst also have enthusiasm?
So I think that it's good to try to understand the difference between being passionate and being enthusiastic. So, if we're really enthusiastic to try to introduce someone to Krishna consciousness, but to try to stay sattvic is the ideal. Whereas if we actually shift across into becoming rajasic, we're more likely to burn them out and even leave them with a negative impression. But to stay sattvic, but to be enthusiastic because you love what you're doing, and you really love this idea of having a relationship with Krishna and his devotees, and you want to share that experience with somebody else, they're going to be much more attracted to you than if you're just being passionate about, you want them to take this book no matter what. It's, I think there's that difference between being enthusiastic as opposed to being passionate. There's a sign there that says, "Gotta finish at 8:30," but I don't want to cut you short. Any last question or comment, Prabhu?
Just on that enthusiasm versus passion. Is passion as an element that I'm the doer? Enthusiasm is you're doing on behalf of Krishna.
Very good distinction, Prabhu. Thank you.
So if you know you're not the doer, you're just the vehicle instrument for Krishna, then that's enthusiasm. And the passion is you get attached to the results. Yes. And if you're not selling books, you get angry. Yes. And you blame it. You blame it, these useless people, they don't want anything. But actually Krishna's just trying to teach you that, you have to come out of this passion that I'm the doer and just depend on Krishna.
Beautiful. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you, everyone. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.